So then it really, for me, became this like, I'm like, I don't believe in the institution. I believe in the movement of the Holy Spirit and the people.
Yeah.
And I said that, like, man, I feel like every conversation I had, people were like, dude, this guy's crazy. Like, he's saying some weird stuff. Cause it was kind of like flew in the face of the entire like church thing, you know?
Right.
And I was all about, I'm like, ecclesia, man. This is what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be this institutional, like, country club thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Rheology Podcast. Rheology is a nonprofit ministry that is centered around rethinking, researching, and rediscovery, a process that dives deep into the depths of an intimate partnership with God through a concept Jesus initiated called ecclesia. We strive to cultivate an environment that is not only safe to question and seek, but also one that is founded on the truths of partnership, words of hope that were uttered from the lips of Jesus himself. So in this podcast, we'll question Christian tradition, we'll investigate God myths, and we'll listen to those who are stirring, questioning, and desperately seeking more of what God is doing in and around us each day.
Hey everybody, Scott Johnson here with the Rheology Podcast, and I'm here with this dude. His name is Drew Burdick, and we've known each other for quite a while. And we are at Drew's house, and we did a recording with his wife Jordan, and heard her story. And we're going to talk about your story, if that's cool. Thanks for letting me come here and do that and invade your house for a little bit. So we're going to kind of do the same thing we did with Jordan, which is just kind of going back and tell me about your upbringing. You know, some people been a Christian their whole lives, whatever. What was your upbringing like, Christian wise, like religious wise?
Yeah. So Chris, who is on this, I grew up with Chris in the Philippines as a missionary kid.
Dude, wait a minute. What?
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
Yeah. So Chris and I have known each other since we were probably like 7 or 8 years old.
Okay.
And early in our lives, we went to a missionary kid school called Faith Academy in the Philippines. Okay. And yeah, so known him most of my life. We didn't get really close until probably 8th grade. And then we played basketball together. He was best man at my wedding. I was best man at his wedding. Mm-hmm. We went to college together. So yeah. And
how did you end up how did you were in the Philippines?
Yeah. So quick backstory. My folks they met in college at Oklahoma University. They had me shortly thereafter after they graduated and everything. Mm-hmm. So I was born in Oklahoma. I was there till I was 2. We moved to Kentucky, where my dad went to Asbury Theological Seminary.
Okay.
And then my brother was born there. And then my parents did this missionary internship thing in Detroit, and then we went to the Philippines. So when I was 4 years old, this was 1990, I was in the Philippines. And yeah, I grew up as a pastor's kid, missionary's kid.
Were your parents affiliated with Chris's parents at all? Or?
No, different organizations.
Okay.
So his folks were with
How crazy is that?
I know, yeah. Well, funny enough, there's actually quite a few mission organizations that posted up in the Philippines.
Okay.
I actually was just back in the Philippines in March for the 40th anniversary of the church that my dad pastored for like 15 years with my brother and sister and their families and my parents. It was like a whole thing, and my kids and Jordan. So
cool.
Anyways, but yeah, so grew up Christian kid, kept my nose clean.
Pastor's kid.
Did the thing. And honestly, like, it was a great life. Like, my parents are great people. One of the things that and this is kind of like comes up, it would be a theme. As a missionary kid, one of the things that is hard is, you're surrounded by all these people who have needs, right? And so when you're the like kid of the missionary, you tend to have to stuff your needs. You tend to have to be like, I'm fine, everything's good. Because you're seeing people in like incredible poverty, and like horrible life situations, and so nothing really feels like it's that big of a deal, And so I got over years got really, really good at just being like, yeah, I'm good. Like I'm
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
So I never really, I guess I didn't realize how much I was just stuffing emotions and being like, me and God, we're good. Like we're fine, and never fully engaging the Holy Spirit in a deep way. But, I didn't know that. Like most of my childhood was just like, yeah, I've got to,
Yeah.
I did the devotions. I took the Bible classes. I could spout, I read, recite from memory the entire book of James, like all of that, right?
Wow. Still?
Probably not anymore. No.
We were going to put you on the clock right here, dude.
I know.
Time
All right, James 1.
Go, man. Yeah. So you had all the stuff, all the stuff down.
All the pedigree. My dad's a doctorate in ministry. My mom's on staff with a mega church now. My dad's like a adjunct professor at Gordon Conwell. I've got all the
wow.
In terms of like spiritual pedigree, like I've got it.
You're there.
I should be like
you achieved it.
The best Christian.
Right.
A plus in the Christian book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe not.
Maybe not, huh? Oh, cool.
Foreshadowing.
Let's get in more of that then.
Yeah.
So how did you get to, I guess your parents like furloughed or something? How'd they get to the United States? How'd you get back here?
Yeah. So every 4 or 5 years or so, we'd come back for furloughs. So third grade, this is another weird thing about me. We came back to the States and my parents had the right idea. Well, let's live. I'm one of 4. So there's 3 other siblings. We're like, well, we'll live in a motorhome. We'll travel around and raise support. And we'll do that. And so by the age of 8, I had seen 47 states.
Wow.
I've never lived in this country, for really any time. But
you saw more of it than the people who actually live here.
Yeah, right.
Do. That's crazy.
Yeah, I've been to pretty much. I've been everywhere. So did that, and then 7th grade, same thing. Traveled around, whatever. I got really good at lying about all the crazy stuff that I did in the Philippines. I grew up in Manila. It's like 15 million person city.
Yeah.
And people would be like, you eat monkey brains? I'm like,
right.
Totally. And they're like, you live in a treehouse? I'm like, yeah, definitely. Say whatever I need to say to be cool, because I didn't want to be like a weird missionary.
Right.
So, yeah. But yeah, so anyway, that was when we were on furloughs. That was kind of what we did. But after graduating high school, funny enough, this is like a fun story. Chris probably, I don't know if he remembers this or not, but like I had applied to all of these Christian schools that I quote unquote thought I was supposed to go to. So like Cedarville and Moody's and Wheaton and all these different places, Liberty. And it was because like, that's what you're supposed to do. You graduate, from this Christian school and you go to a Christian college.
Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. And Chris's brother actually was going to UNC Charlotte, and Chris's family's from Asheville area. So Chris was like, you should come with me to UNC Charlotte. And I had already enrolled in Cedarville at the time. I was going to go to school in Ohio with another friend. And it's funny because I'm like, I'm not, I'll just do it as a joke. I applied after the enrollment, got accepted, and like didn't think anything of it. Well, anyway, remember distinctly, I was driving home from a basketball game with my dad. And I was talking to my dad because my mom was kind of on my back, like, you should go to Charlotte, because I have some family in South Carolina. She wanted me to be near somebody. I'm like, whatever, Mom. Like, don't tell me what to do.
Right. You're like, actually, I want to be away from family.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to be as far away from family as possible. So, anyways, I'm in the car with my dad. My dad's like a really wise guy. We not wise guy.
Yeah.
He's a
smart feller.
Yeah, deep wisdom.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that until much later in life. But anyway,
of course
not. He said something. He's like, Drew, I don't think you're cut out for Christian school. And I was like, huh? What do you mean? Like, you're supposed to tell me to go to the Christian school, right? Isn't that the thing that I'm supposed to do? And he's like, no, I really think you should. I think you should consider like going to a secular place. Just experience it. I was like, okay, yeah, all right. So, anyways, enrolled at UNC Charlotte. Came to school. Never been to Charlotte before. It was one of the 47 states I'd never actually been to. Charlotte. Yeah, I'd been near Charlotte, but never been in Charlotte.
That's insane.
So first time, showed up on campus. I actually thought it was Chapel Hill. I was like, this is where Michael Jordan went, right? Everyone's like, no, you idiot.
Where's the Jordan statue?
Yeah, I'm like, and they're like, no, there's way more UNC schools here. Anyway, this was kind of like the point where I had been over churched, but didn't know it yet.
Okay.
And I kind of like reached this point where I was like, I don't know, man. I kind of want to like explore. And this is pretty typical for kids who've grown up in Christian school their whole life. So I got like piercings. I had a mohawk. I grew my goatee out crazy and just kind of doing, you know, I wasn't doing anything necessarily bad. I was just like not really like pursuing Christ. I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna put that on the shelf over here and just kind of chill. Also grappling with just frankly like culture shock and adjusting to a new world and a new normal, you know, also regular college kid stuff. Like you're like, I don't really know how to be an adult yet. So going through that. And then Chris's older brother, actually, Andrew, who's now a missionary in Australia, he was like, hey, you should come join us at this Impact thing. And I'm like, I don't really want to. I'm like watching South Park, so no thank you. And he's like, no, you should come and we should do this. I'm like, fine. So we went and met some folks and it was cool. And so got involved in this campus ministry, and that's where I met you. That's where I met Jordan. That's where I met a lot of folks, Tyler.
Yeah.
And like I think it was overall pretty good, but still, like, I think I was definitely in this mode for a very long time of just like, I'm good, I'm fine, like everything's fine. It never really went deeper than just kind of this like, yeah, you're supposed to go to church.
Right.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of like going from, you know, church and being fine and to another essentially church and being fine. And then Jordan kind of told this part of the story, but basically, you know, we met. She thought I was a weirdo.
But not too weird.
Not too weird, you know.
Just good.
Yeah, I was able to. I had like my giant crazy goatee. This is where you like cut to a picture of me with a crazy.
We'll get
goatee.
it. Don't worry.
Picture of beautiful Jordan and weird looking Drew. Anyway, you know, somehow she decided to like, you know, hang out with me, and so we got married shortly after college. My, you know, one of the things that I don't know that Jordan really dug into was that when I graduated, like, economy was crap. There was nobody hiring. I had no idea what I was doing.
09.
09 economy's bad.
Yeah.
I was trying to be a
you parked cars for a while.
Parked cars, yeah. I was trying to be an air traffic controller. I got a 99 on the test. I went to Atlanta and took this test, and then they were like, you know, never called me back. And I'm like, I just took this 8-hour exam and I blew it out of the water, and you're not going to let me be an air traffic controller?
Yeah.
I'm so thankful.
Yeah,
that I was not.
no doubt. You dodged a serious bullet on that one.
Second most stressful job in the world.
Yeah.
But, you know, in 22-year-old me is like, oh, this is a great idea.
Land some planes.
I'll probably make like 90 grand. It's going to be fantastic. Yeah. So, yeah, parked cars, washed windows, poured concrete. I like was freelance designing thanks to this guy who gave me a bootleg copy of Photoshop.
Sorry, Adobe.
Yes. And I'm like, oh, I want to design for a living. And so, yeah, just started doing that thing. And I kind of like, this was the period in my life where all I cared about was work, basically. I was just like, work is life. And I thought I was doing a good thing, but I wasn't doing a good thing. I thought I was like, oh, you're supposed to like, you know, like I go to church, I check the boxes, I work my job,
right,
provide for my family. This is great. I'm doing a great job. And, you know, so one of the like things that I tend to do is I tend to just kind of be like, I'm just running. Like I'm either like all in or all out. I don't really have like a 50%, or at least that's how it's been. Yeah. And somewhere in the middle of like 2014, I was in Baltimore, and sidebar, I had a clothing brand for a period of time, which listeners probably are like, what? This is a weird guy. But yeah, I had a clothing brand was kind of a side project turned main project. And so anyways, this brand was about electronic music. So I would go to events and festivals and things and set up and sell t-shirts and stuff that I designed. Yeah. Anyway, I'm in Baltimore. I'm having a, crappy weekend because people aren't buying the way that I'd hoped they would. And I called Jordan. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Like, whatever. And she's like, kind of acting funny. And I'm like, what's going on here? And long story short, she basically was like, I don't really know how I feel about us anymore. And I'm like, what? And this is like completely stunning to me because I'm like, well, I'm checking all the boxes. Like, what do you mean? This was basically the beginning of like what we came to realize was like this unraveling of everything that we thought we knew. And I mean, really it had been happening for her for a while, but for me, it was like kind of a slap in the face. Like, oh, wake up call. And so, I've been on this like long journey, I guess you could call it, of like setting me up for stirring. And the way I'll kind of characterize like the next decade, so this was like 2014, mid 2015, I decided to take a job, stop working for myself. I took a corporate job. I honestly didn't even know if I was going to be employable because at this point I'd done all kinds of weird stuff. I had an agency sort of thing. I was doing clothing brand. I had a record label. I had a game. I had a video game app. Yeah. It was just kind of all over the place. And so I texted a couple friends of mine. I'm like, hey man, I don't even know if I can get a job, but I'm just trying to figure some stuff out. And they were like, yeah, man. So I got a job. So just started like focusing on the family and focusing on relationships and not just being so overly fixated on my work. And had a few different jobs go over the last 10 years. But about a year, well, I should say in 2019, Jordan probably hit on this a little bit. Right before COVID, we had kind of a big blow up and she went spiraling into depression. And for me, it was like, for the flip side of the story, I had no idea. I was not equipped for this. Like, Bible school didn't teach you like how to help a deeply depressed, suicidal person. Yeah. And I was like, this is where for me,
that wasn't in the vows anywhere either. You're like, wait a minute here.
Yeah. You're like, how do I don't know what to do, you know? And you know, we went to therapy or counseling and honestly, I was like, I got a lot of this like spiritual mumbo jumbo, like Christian fortune cookie stuff. And I was like, this is just, it doesn't work. Like, this is not helping at all. And that was really where we both kind of went. It was almost this like we diverged for a period of time, for a season where she was kind of like, focused on her internal headspace and everything. And I was as well. And, it was a tough time. It was a dark time. It was, and then COVID hit. And so you're like, okay, now our marriage is in weird disarray. I'm like, I don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. There's a global pandemic. I'm like trying to like hold it all together. And I just got to the point where I was like, I don't believe in any of this stuff. Like, this is all a bunch of bunk, man. Like, I've been told I've been sold a false bill of goods. Like, going to church and reading my Bible and praying and doing all the things, like checking all these boxes doesn't fix anything. Yeah. And I remember this is the point that like really like kind of was, I would say, the catalyst for me. I called my parents and I was mad. Like, and I don't really do this very often, but I was like cussing on the phone with them, like just pissed. I was like, this is all bullshit. I'm just going off. And I'm like, this is like, none of this is true. Like, this is such a lie. Like, this isn't working anymore, and I don't understand. And I'm just like going off. And my mom is like trying the best that she can. She's like saying all the things you're supposed to say. And my dad like grabs the phone from her and he's like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, all I know is like, I'm just trusting that God is going to like come through. And every time he does, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Half the time I don't even know if I'm hearing from him, if I'm just crazy, And this is the guy that I'm like, you're supposed to like know the things. Like, you're supposed to be like, oh, I'm the most spiritual person. And he's been president of Bible college and senior pastor of a church of several thousand and like got the doctorate and all this stuff. And you're like, wait, what? Okay. Oh, so I'm not crazy. Like, everybody feels this, like, wait a second, this whole church thing isn't necessarily like what we all thought it would be. Right. So that was like this big catalytic moment for me where I'm like, okay, now what is it? And then I really started to get with God. I'm like, God, what does this all mean? Like, and that was right around when you released your book. And I was just like, okay, this is a really fascinating title that's like a paragraph long. Let me check this book out. And it was mind-blowing. It honestly was the first time I'd ever read anything in church history that actually made any sense. Like, I specifically remember reading the part of the book where it was talking about like Constantine and how, Church of Acts, Christians getting martyred and killed. Time passes, Constantine comes into power. He's like, his mom's a Christian or whatever. And he's like, stop killing Christians, formalizes church, implements all these things, meet on Sunday, pay your alms, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I was just like, holy crap. And it's like, hey, like nowhere in the Bible does it say that you're supposed to do these things.
Right.
We just do them because it's what we've said for thousands of years ago. This is, so then it really, for me, became this like, I'm like, I don't believe in the institution. I believe in the movement of the Holy Spirit and the people.
Yeah.
And I said that, like, man, I feel like every conversation I had, people were like, dude, this guy's crazy. Like he's saying some weird stuff. Cause it was kind of like flew in the face of the entire like church thing,
Right.
And I was all about, I'm like, ecclesia, man. This is what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be this institutional like country club thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was probably 2020, 2021, somewhere in there. I don't remember when you released your book.
2020.
Yeah, 2020. So I'm still going through all stuff with our marriage. I'm still like kind of like piecing together like, okay, like I don't know if I believe in this whole church thing anymore. Like this seems like, where is it just like throw it all away, throw some of it away? Like what happens now? And so kind of came to this place where I'm like, I don't really know what I'm like. All right, Lord, I don't really know what you're doing here. I don't know exactly what to do, but we have like people that we're friends with and we're here for the people.
Yeah.
Like we continue to go because we're like, we care about these people. I don't really care about the sermon or any of this other stuff, but like the people, the community is what we're there for. And so we just continue to like be in community and be intentional and be being transformed in front of other people.
Yeah.
And, now fast forward a couple of years, like Jordan shared, I won't go into all the details because you've heard it already, but like church kind of blew up a little bit. Not a little bit, a lot of it, like totally blew up.
Right.
We're in the middle of it. We're like, oh, okay. And, now we're in this place where we've quit church because we're like, I don't think it's what it's supposed to be. I don't think that the like showing up on a Sunday, listen to some dude talk to you for an hour and like singing some songs. It's not it. It doesn't fill the God-shaped hole, and it doesn't produce the fruit that I think
you're hoping for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's almost like, why would I go to another church if I still believe in that?
Yeah.
I should have just stayed where I knew people.
Yeah.
And just kind of went with it.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about where you are like right now. I know because you've obviously started another business.
Yep.
You walked away from a couple of years of being in the corporate deal, and now you started your own business. And so talk about like, now that you've walked away from, you are definitely considered a done in both ways. You're done with church. The idea of church is like the gateway to everything Christian wise, but you're also done going to church. So you've hit it on both parts. Congratulations.
And done with corporate America. And
hey man,
done with a lot of things.
Let's preach that. Done with politics. Yeah. So what's it? So now it's almost like you've experienced like this freedom of like, you're now a free range chicken, and you're like, wow, this is grass over here, So talk a little bit about like what you feel like God's kind of, because we've talked before about like the eyes that see and the ears that hear, because that's like the transition, right? The transition is like, I'm not trying to, because church is almost like we need to do something for God, and we've totally missed on the idea of like, no, this is not our thing here. This is God's thing. Yep. He's on mission and he's inviting us to join him. So maybe talk a little bit about, you've already talked about this stuff with me, but I'd like to hear, some more things that you have, that God's kind of like been doing around you that you've finally taken notice of and heard.
Yeah. So to give a little context, so I quit my job like 3-4 months ago to set out on building a business. It's a consulting business, and honestly, like I have no idea. I'm kind of just like taking full leap of faith and trusting that God's going to take care of it. Honestly, it's a little bit like, okay, but it's exciting. It's exciting times. Like, it's, we quit church, we quit corporate. We don't have an income. We're figuring it out. We're trusting God. And I think that full dependence on God has been like, it's exhilarating and exciting and terrifying at the same time. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that's really, really interesting about it is, as I've like kind of Jordan and I have set out on this journey, God's been like revealing to me like these people around in the ecosystem that I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And so I'm having some interesting conversations with a bunch of people, and I have a piece of paper in my office. It's like, there's like 15 or 20 people that I've written down that I'm like, they're pushing the mission forward with God. They're doing kingdom stuff. Yeah. And I'm like,
outside the church.
Yeah, outside the church. Like,
holy cow.
Yeah, right. Holy cow.
It works. It exists.
Yeah. Like, I talked to a guy, I was telling you earlier, I talked to this guy on Friday from Dallas, and he's this organization, or this, it's not even an organization, I don't even call it that. It's like, I don't know, it's a people. There are people that are hanging out. Right. And he, around Dallas in these co-working spaces, he's just inviting people in to conversation, and they basically, it's like a lunch type of thing. Mm-hmm. They bring people, believers, non-believers, just together, and they discuss these really like difficult topics. Like, they talk about things that are, they ask unusual questions. They really start to create interesting conversations. And so that's just one guy. There's another woman that I've been hanging out with recently. She runs this organization that's all about integrating faith and work. And it's really fascinating because it's like a completely different approach to like, it's not church. It's not like,
and you're not trying to get anybody to go to church.
Yeah. You're not trying to, and it's not like, oh, read the Roman Road and blah, blah, blah. It's right. Like, it's like, how do you live your faith in the workplace? How do you, be transformed in front of people and love God and love people? Like, how do you do that well and it be part of your work piece? And there was something a couple years ago, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago now. It was this really interesting story that I read, and basically it was talking about Paul. Like, Paul wrote most of the New Testament. Most people are like, oh, Paul's the greatest, whatever, apostle and everything. Right. And there's always like this little tiny footnote, like, he made tents. But anyway, by the way, and it's just kind of like blitz past it, never really talk about that
right
piece.
Yeah.
And it was really fascinating because it discussed how Paul, really, tent making was a core part of his ministry. That he would go and he would be in the marketplace, and he was an exceptional tent maker, and he worked with other people, and he would gain respect and trust with these people. And then that would ultimately lead to conversation and relationship that they trusted him. And then they would actually be like, dude, why are you the way that you are, kind of thing. Right. Yeah. This is Drew's interpretation. And it just kind of stuck with me because it's like, you think about Paul as this big, apostle, he's going around preaching.
Missionary.
Yeah. But like, if you really kind of dig into the text, and I'm not a scholar by any means, but it just talks about like his ministry, the tent making part of it was such a core component of how he did life, how he, did ministry, and how he shared the gospel or, shared Jesus with other people. And that's kind of something that for me, it's really
struck
resonated.
A chord with you.
Okay, God, like how do I do that? Or what does that look like? Yeah. And,
because all of this is like all new construction. Because you asked me a couple weeks ago, you're like, okay, cool. So tell me what's the ecclesia look like? And I'm like going, I don't know, man. A lot of things. Yeah. And that's what it looks like, you know, because it's a deconstruction of an institution for, a door, knocking down a wall into a massive pasture, where life is actually happening and stuff, and where Jesus is. Yeah. So it's I love that. I love that because I feel like, that is like the key of it. It's like, well, if it's not this, then what the heck? What is it? And it's really actually much simpler than what we really think. It's like, oh, it's that? It's just over here at work? Yeah. Oh, that's convenient, I mean, at the very least. So, so what do you, so where do you and this could obviously change. We're not going to sit here and predict God, for crying out loud, because you could say something on this microphone and we can record it, and like next week you'll be like, hey, can you cut that out, because that's not happening. God's not actually doing that. But if do you feel like that the workspace kind of deal is really like the Paul making tents? Hey man, your role on this planet isn't your business.
Yeah.
It's an avenue. Your business is an avenue, like Paul with tents. Do you feel like that's kind of like, I think this is where God's going with me here?
Yeah, I think so. I have this tattoo on my arm. It says, "Do the next right thing," and there's a whole backstory on that we don't have to get into. But at probably the darkest moment in Jordan and my marriage, it was something that really like resonated, and has honestly been our mantra for 4 or 5 years. And that's what I'm going to continue to do, is just do the next right thing. Like trusting the Lord is going to put things in front of me that, and reveal to me in those moments, like, how I can partner with him in his mission.
Yeah.
But it definitely does seem like some of this, connecting with these other folks who are living a faith-filled kind of redemptive life in front of other people in a work environment is the way, or is a part of the path. I don't really know exactly, but I'm actually later, early October, mid-October, I got invited to be part of this redemptive entrepreneurship lab thing. And it was kind of literally, I met this guy. It's kind of God, right? Like, this woman that I know, I went to lunch with, and then this other guy came, and then he brought a dude that I've never met. None of us have met him. And we were just like, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you, guy." And we got his email, we've been chatting or whatever. And then he just like forwarded this thing to me like 3 weeks ago, and was like, "Hey, you should check this out." Cause I'd been talking about a lot of this stuff with him. And then I go and I'm like, "Oh, this is really cool. Like redemptive faith entrepreneurship thing." I'm like, "Well, that's really interesting." Like there's a bunch of people who are kind of in the same zone that are going to go get together and like jam for a little while, And then you had shared with me that Tampa Underground video, link in the comments. Just kidding. Link in the description. But super interesting. And, so Jordan and I have been talking about, there's supposedly, I don't know, there's supposed to be a Tampa Underground in Atlanta. I don't know if it still exists. I don't know if it's around.
Yeah, you'd mentioned that.
Yeah, but like, I kind of want to go to Tampa or Atlanta like in a week or two, and I kind of want to go to Tampa, and I just want to like be around people who are also in this mode where it's like just sort of pursuing where the Spirit is moving. Like it's this. I had this metaphor. Actually, I should have shared this earlier. During this whole transition we were going through at our church, I felt like God gave me this really interesting picture. And it was this picture of, you're in a boat, and people, there's people who are sitting in the boat and they've got an oar in their hands, and they're like, it's sitting in their lap, and they're just like pissed, right? They're just kind of like, or like they don't know what to do, right? And you have people who have like thrown the oar out of the boat, and they're like getting up on the edge and they're jumping out. Or there's people that are even out of the water that are just like swimming, treading water. And then there's people who are like actually in there and they're rowing. And it doesn't matter who the captain is at the front of the boat. It doesn't matter like, any of those things. You're really trusting that the sail, the wind, the Holy Spirit is going to carry you where
in the
you're
direction you need to go.
And you're not, it's like, we often, I think, and especially Christians in America, we're worried so much about like who's in the boat and like who's the captain at the front of the boat. Yeah. And like, should I row this way or that way? It's like, nah, man, like the wind is going to take you where you need to go. And you just got to flow like water, like roll with it. Yeah. Don't try to like white knuckle your, if you try to hold the steering wheel and like turn it this way, like
makes things worse basically.
Yeah. And so that's really kind of where I am now. I just want to be around people who are thinking about these things, who are exploring these questions and ideas, and like just trust and just do the next right thing, and be like, all right, Lord, I don't know what this is supposed to be or how it's supposed to go, but I know it's not that. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Right. So yeah, like we've had a couple of our friends have been like, so are you gonna like, what church are you gonna go to now? I'm like, I'm not I'm not doing it. They're like, well, but you're you just get to take a break, right? And you're like, no, man, I'm like done with it. Like,
right.
Period. I don't like, and it's like, that's cool. If you feel like God's, I'm not, and this is another thing that I've been thinking about a lot. I've been kind of pondering this idea that there's different forms of transportation, and in some seasons of life, you need a bicycle, or you need a skateboard, or you need a car, or you need a plane, and different seasons call for different things. And I think that, I've been challenged in the last year, 6 months, about this thought. Like, I used to be like, throw the church away, it's worthless, it's bad. And that was, I think, wrong thinking on my part. And God's kind of been revealing to me, like, different people need different things at different times, And so in some seasons, there are people who, they might need the, like, country club kind of a thing. And it might be like, oh, this is a blue car.
Right.
And they're driving a blue car. And there's nothing wrong with having a blue car.
Sure.
I think just in this season of my life, I'm like, I'm ready for a skateboard, or like God is like, in this season, we're moving into like skateboard territory. And I'm like, I'm kind of like, it kind of fits. Like I'm a more of a skateboard than a blue car guy, And so I think it's not to like say like, oh, people who are in church, they're, blind and can't see or something like that. Like, I think that there is value. And I think there are people who are in their season of life where that maybe that's what God is like, has them there for a purpose, but I think for me, like, I'm just kind of like, I'm done with it.
From the whole Rheology team, we hope these podcasts are encouraging and educational. Rheology exists for three main reasons: to reach, train, and equip those who want to go deeper with God in this partnership called Ecclesia. If God has been stirring in your heart, where you are wondering if there's more than what you've been experiencing in today's 21st century Christianity, we'd love to connect with you, to hear your story and help you know that you are not alone. You can simply contact us via the website, rheologylife.com, or reach out via Instagram, @rheology_life. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.